Right now, while most people are scrolling through headlines and short clips, some of the most important immigration decisions are being shaped quietly in Washington. These are not dramatic announcements. There is no single executive order, no breaking news alert that fully explains what is happening. Instead, there are funding negotiations, court decisions, internal agency pauses, and political pressure campaigns that slowly change how immigration enforcement works in real life. This is always how it starts. Immigration does not usually change overnight. It shifts gradually, and by the time people realize something has changed, the system has already moved ahead of them. The biggest mistake immigrants make in moments like this is assuming that silence equals safety. They think that because no new law was announced today, nothing is happening. That is not how the US immigration system operates. Immigration is deeply tied to budgets, priorities, and discretion. When funding is debated, enforcement behavior changes. When courts issue rulings, agency confidence changes. When political pressure increases or decreases, officers on the ground adjust how aggressively they act. None of this requires a press conference, but all of it affects real people. At the center of the current situation is the Department of Homeland Security, and more specifically, how immigration and customs enforcement is funded and supervised. For years, ICE funding has been treated as routine. Congress would approve it with little resistance, and enforcement would continue largely unchanged. This time is different. Government funding disputes have forced lawmakers to look closely at agencies that normally operate in the background. ICE is one of those agencies, and the fact that its funding is being questioned at all matters more than most people realize. Funding is not just money, funding is authority. It determines how many agents are hired, how many operations are planned, how much technology is deployed, and how aggressively enforcement is carried out. It also determines whether there are rules attached. When funding is approved without conditions, enforcement expands with minimal oversight. When funding is tied to specific requirements, enforcement becomes more controlled. Right now, some lawmakers are arguing that ICE funding should come with reforms such as body cameras, clear identification, limits on masked operations, and restrictions on random street encounters. These are not political slogans. These are operational constraints that directly affect how enforcement feels in immigrant communities. When enforcement operates without strong oversight, efficiency becomes more important than precision. That is where problems start. Immigration enforcement has never been perfect at targeting only people with serious criminal histories. When pressure increases, the enforcement net widens. That net catches people who are working, raising families, waiting for approvals, or living under temporary protections. Anyone telling you that only criminals are affected during aggressive enforcement periods is either uninformed or intentionally misleading you. Legal status provides rights, but it does not shield you from scrutiny, delays, or stress when enforcement activity increases. This environment affects undocumented individuals, but it also affects people who believe they are relatively safe. Temporary protected status holders are a prime example. TPS is not permanent status. It is a temporary measure designed to provide relief during extraordinary conditions. The problem is that many people build long-term lives around temporary protections. They work legally, pay taxes, raise children, and contribute to their communities. When TPS expiration dates approach or become uncertain, that stability starts to crack. Enforcement awareness increases, employers become cautious, and everyday activities start to feel risky. Haiti TPS illustrates this reality clearly. For years, TPS has allowed Haitian families to live and work in the United States with a sense of security. As expiration timelines come into focus, fear replaces certainty. This fear is not irrational. Temporary status always comes with an expiration clock, and when that clock becomes loud, enforcement attention follows. In certain states and cities, especially where immigrant communities are highly visible, that pressure becomes even more intense. Locations do not attract enforcement randomly. Visibility, local cooperation, and political signaling all play a role. One of the most damaging responses to this pressure is panic. Panic makes people feel productive while actually harming their future. When people panic, they file asylum claims they do not qualify for. They submit applications without understanding the requirements. They trust unlicensed advisors who promise quick fixes. These actions feel like movement, but immigration law punishes bad movement more severely than no movement at all. A weak or fraudulent filing can permanently damage credibility and eliminate options that might have been available later. Here is a truth that many people avoid because it is uncomfortable. Not everyone has a legal pathway under current law. Some TPS holders will qualify for family-based adjustment, some will have employment-based options, some will have no viable path at all. Pretending that everyone has a solution is not compassionate, it is dishonest. False hope wastes time, and time is the most valuable resource in immigration cases. Losing years because someone told you what you wanted to hear instead of what you needed to hear is one of the most common tragedies in this system. Court decisions across the country further show how unstable the immigration landscape can be. In some states, courts have allowed enforcement actions to move forward. In others, legal challenges and political pressure have slowed or temporarily halted enforcement. This does not mean one state is permanently safe and another is permanently dangerous. It means immigration policy responds to pressure. Litigation matters. Public accountability matters. Silence does not protect anyone. Complaining privately does not change outcomes. Systems respond to documented resistance, not frustration expressed online. This is why contacting elected representatives still matters, even when people feel cynical about politics. Calling a representative's office is not symbolic activism. Offices track calls, they categorize concerns, they use those numbers during negotiations. No one is asking you to disclose your immigration status. No one is placing you on a secret list. Fear of making a phone call is not a safety strategy. It is avoidance disguised as caution. The system counts participation, not silence. Another major source of confusion right now is USCIS processing pauses affecting applicants from dozens of countries. Many people hear the word pause and assume denial. That is incorrect. A pause means the agency has slowed or stopped processing certain cases internally. Applications for green cards, work permits, and naturalization can remain pending for months or longer. During that time, lives do not pause. Work permits expire, travel plans fall apart, people lose jobs, families experience financial strain while waiting quietly. Waiting without a strategy during a processing pause is not patience, it is surrender. The government has no incentive to move faster unless it is required to explain itself. This is where litigation becomes relevant. Lawsuits against USCIS for unreasonable delay do not guarantee approval, and they are not appropriate for every case. They require that the applicant be physically present in the United States and have a case that has been pending beyond normal processing times. They also require financial investment. What they do is force accountability. When an agency must answer to a federal judge, timelines suddenly matter. Silence is replaced with explanation. Movement often follows. Many people fear that filing a lawsuit will put them at risk or draw negative attention. In reality, these cases are handled through attorneys and overseen by federal courts. Retaliation is not how this process works. The greater risk is indefinite delay. Doing nothing also carries consequences, even though people prefer to pretend it does not. Delay often closes doors quietly, without warning. Lawful permanent residents are not immune to the effects of an aggressive enforcement environment either. Increased enforcement pressure leads to increased scrutiny at ports of entry. International travel may be legal, but re-entry can involve questioning, delays, or secondary inspection. Assuming that a green card guarantees a smooth experience ignores current realities. Rights exist, but exercising them often requires preparation and patience. For individuals with existing removal orders, misinformation is especially dangerous. Online advice treats immigration like a game with universal solutions. Real cases are not that simple. Facts matter, timing matters, prior history matters. Assuming your situation matches someone else's story because it sounds similar is reckless. Professional legal guidance is not optional in these situations. It is the difference between informed decisions and irreversible mistakes. This conversation is not meant to create fear. It is meant to remove false comfort. Immigration law does not operate on sympathy, effort, or fairness. It operates on statutes, deadlines, and enforcement priorities. Influencers who rely only on motivation collect views, not results. Those who rely only on fear paralyze people. Neither approach helps families make intelligent decisions. Here is the reality most people avoid. If you delay long enough, the system will decide for you. And when the system decides without your input, the outcome is rarely favorable. Taking informed action does not guarantee success, but inaction almost guarantees regret. Every month that passes without a plan reduces flexibility and increases risk. This moment requires clarity, not emotion. It is not the time to guess. It is not the time to file random forms. It is not the time to assume that things will work out on their own. If you are in an affected category, staying informed is the minimum requirement. Being prepared is your responsibility. Seeking qualified help when your situation is complex is not weakness, it is strategic thinking. If you are listening to this and still feel frozen, the problem is not a lack of information, it is avoidance. Immigration does not reward avoidance, it rewards preparation, timing, and accuracy. Not every case ends well, but the worst outcomes almost always occur when people do nothing and hope for the best. The choice is not between panic and peace. The choice is between informed action and passive regret. One gives you leverage, the other leaves you exposed. Decide which one you can live with.